So yeah, that's. I feel very much at home here. All in all, I'm very happy.
Our children have been there to see their grandparents, and they still come with their children, so it's really special.
I think that has made life very easy and very comfortable, and particularly very happy for me.
It was a wonderful place for the family to grow up, and it was just great.
Things that have gone past you can't change. So overall, as I said, I'm an optimist. Things sort of improve eventually.
I never wanted to move. I still don't want to move. So I'm just happy where I am, and I am happy where I am. Even though I know it's not ideal, it's still, I'm happy.
But when I got to England, I thought, this is sad. I'm having all this experience, and it's a pity Penny is not here.
Put your right foot first. Superstition, start the life on a good note. And I nearly tripped getting off the ship.
We've had our downs in St Ives, but most of it has been ups. It's been an absolute privilege to live and meet people and have friends in St Ives.
So we said, well, where else? And, well, Australia, yeah, didn't know anybody, didn't know a soul. It's still as it is, so it has that aura. It's quite distinct.
And I think human contact is the basis for other things. Doesn't matter if you haven't got a degree. We built with our own hands. We had a dream, and everybody said we'd go broke. These silly kids, It's a monument to my husband, really.
We never heard of North Turramurra until we saw that photo, and it was the first time we went there, and how lucky are we? We really hit the jackpot.
And in the main it's worked out. No, I think all in all I've been lucky and been well looked after.
I just enjoy it. So I got to count my blessings that I'm happy there, really.
And I was born because my mother had been to a Laurel and Hardy picture and laughed so much that when the waters broke, she thought it was just an embarrassment and couldn't leave the picture show until everybody else had left. And thus I was born at 4 o'clock in the morning, Sunday's child, and the frost that held Vienna in its late grip broke, and all the toilets flushed even better after I was born. You can edit all that out later if you like.
There were seven people in the street had cars. 4 people had telephones, and they invited all the neighbours to use the telephones. All they had to do was pay for the call. And family, all the neighbours were like family. We all knew one another. There were koala bears in the trees outside number 27, 3 doors down the street from us. And a great big dirt heap, about that high and about this round, on the nature strip outside that place. And that was for people to throw the dead snakes on. There were snakes everywhere.
I remember Gordon being so quiet. There was just a little shop across the road. We used to buy our penny ruler and our school supplies and any sweets and things like that. And there was a real estate agent there, Colwalls, who were very well known in the area. And it was just a very quiet place, practically only a 2-lane highway going through Gordon in those days.
Most of our play was on the street. We had all the families were young, with young children, and we all grew up together. And we had billy cart races, and we all had bikes, and we had a flying fox across the creek, and lots of fun and bonfires and all that sort of thing. It was great. It was such a happy childhood. We just loved living there, and we still absolutely love living there. It was very happy then, and it's very happy now. I think we're very privileged.
My wife, Gail, thought we were moving out to the country because there was nothing up at St Ives in those days. It was very rural. It was a proper little village. Loved it. I fell in love with St Ives when I was a young teenager because on a Sunday in those days you'd go for a drive in Mum and Dad's car and Dad was always going to different places, and we drove through St Ives. And I looked at it and I thought it was just absolutely marvellous, absolutely wonderful place.
My parents were one of the first residents of the area, and the bars was built prior to the renovated era. Okay, so that was timber, all timber construction, and the old bridge was constructed in 1924, so that's when my parents moved in around at that time afterwards. So that was in the 30s, in the height of the Depression. The area was logged out, right? It was a foreshore to Middle Harbour, so you had fishing, you had crustaceans, which is shellfish and whatever. You had the mangroves there.
This was, again, at that time, in 65, quite isolated. Again, we didn't have any postal delivery, we didn't have any roads, we didn't have any footpaths, we didn't have any drainage, and of course we had the good old septic tank as well, and then all the wash water and that sort of thing went into trenches at the back and was absorbed into the soil.
Well, I can nearly name a lot of the orchards that were there then. The people, you knew the people that owned the orchards and they knew you, and it was mostly orchards when I grew up and went to school, and then it went from there to Market Gardens, and they were going till after the war.
Unfortunately, childhood days were very much associated with the time of war, and the war obviously is not something you very fond in terms of memories. It does. I was lucky in many ways. I survived the war. My father died during the war. I was 6 when he died. I hardly knew him, and a lot of the memories, particularly at the time of the front when the Russians set up the units right above town and bombarded it with artillery and aircraft for about 4 weeks, with all the windows blown, all the bridges blown, and sitting essentially in minus 10 or 8 temperature in unheated rooms. That's probably one of the least attractive recollections. Also, invariably, people killed and maimed, and seeing that as a child of 10 makes you definitely a pacifist to the core, which I am. I don't believe in wars in any form or fashion.
My father was a very clever man, and in 1937 he worked out that Austria and Germany, of course, was not going to be any kind of good place for Jews. And he said, we have to go far away, not as refugees, but as legal migrants. And it took about a year to work that out, while all his friends said, you're mad. Why would you do this? Because he was a lawyer in Vienna. He couldn't be a lawyer here. But the end result was we were all alive, unlike most of the family thereafter.
In 1944, the Soviets or communists were coming back into the city of Lviv, where I was born, which is the very western part of Ukraine, bordering on Poland. And that was a second invasion. They invaded in 1939. Then the Germans came in to liberate us. Then the Soviets came in again, started to come in, and my parents said, right, this is time for us to liberate ourselves. I was 2 years old, so they packed literally what they could carry, went to Central Station in Lviv, and got on the train. The Germans were helping the refugees to escape from the Soviet invasion. But it wasn't a simple altruistic help. They helped themselves to the people. A lot of the people were taken to labour camps or concentration camps, and we ended up in a German concentration camp.
We eventually married and had 3 children, and then I said we decided to come to Australia. She was scared that another war was going to break out in Europe, and she was in Exeter when it was bombed, and she didn't want to go through that anymore. She had a sister living in Canada, but I couldn't entertain the thought of Canada because it would be too cold. So we said, well, where else? And, well, Australia, yeah, didn't know anybody. So I applied to the various states, and New South Wales, believe it or not, were the quickest off the mark. They had a representative in London that interviewed me, accepted me, and then I got my passage worked out and came up by boat. No idea at all. Didn't know a soul, so I didn't know anything about it, just knew it was far away from anywhere and willing to have a go.
They met in 1956 during the Melbourne Olympics and came up with a win-win deal where the Polish Olympic Committee provided some players to Australia on 2-year contracts, and the Poles in Australia in turn collected money and supported the Polish Olympic Committee. Money in Poland at the time was quite, money in any form or fashion in a country was stricken in the way as Poland was during the war, was an important part even to develop sport, despite the fact that the government of any socialist communist country was very keen on supporting, because it was a great advertisement for the country. I applied for for playing either in Canada or in Australia. The Australia offer came up first, and he wasn't given a choice. Essentially, it was either you take it or not. And getting out of Poland at that time was like winning a lottery.
We bought a berth in Darling Harbour, which is today a beautiful place. In those days it was a cargo port, and it was middle winter, and we were told to leave all our warm belongings in Austria because we were coming to a subtropical country, and we were freezing. And I remember getting off the boat and Mum saying, "Put your right foot first." Superstition, start the laugh on a good note. And I nearly tripped getting off the ship. And then
having gone back to Sydney, Penny and I saw a great deal of each other, and love blossomed, and it was assumed that we were a couple, but there were no bonds or ties. But when I got to England, I thought, this is sad. I'm having all this experience and seeing England. It's a pity Penny is not here. So I spoke by telephone, which was a big deal then. You had to book the call days ahead, and it was very expensive, international phone calls. And said to Penny something along the lines of, "Come over and we'll get married or something."
I said, "What's the or something?"
The or something was cohabiting rather than any particular obligation. We remember this is the 60s, and free love was becoming accepted instead of the Fred Nile approach, which was total abstinence until marriage.
I flew over there and we married in England, and then we just kept going and we kept going. Yes, I know.
Oh, well, first of all, I used to admire him in the quad because he was so handsome and rather melancholy, and had edited Anna, the arts magazine, for that year, because he was 2 years ahead of me. And I looked at him, such a heartthrob. But came the end of the year, Pete said to me, "Do you want to come to Philosophy Conference?" So the Philosophy Conference was in the WA Centre at Newport, a nice bus trip, and there was Peter Shrub. And he took to me as soon as he saw me, so from then on we were actually connected. A few ups and downs. He was not a boarding school girl like me. He was a young man, and he had other girlfriends. By the time he was going on for 19 by then, But it didn't happen to everybody.
Because when we told my mother-in-law that we were going to be married, the lady at that stage was very anti-Catholicism. And she said she could think of nothing worse for a daughter-in-law than a Catholic that lived on the poor side of the railway line. We didn't go to church for starters, but there was a Monsignor Crowley. He was very tough. And I was going to marry a non-Catholic, and that was very frowned on. The only thing I didn't tell Don, my husband, that I went to see him first because he roared and ranted and raved. Anyway, Don had to go and do 5 sessions with him, to learn about Catholicism. And I said, yes, on one condition I'll come with you, because I went to the public school and I didn't know much about Catholicism either.
Well, we had our first child in Rockhampton, Robert. He was born in 1972, and just at that time the company were moving us to Sydney. So I drove myself to the hospital, and they gave me a big school bell to ring in case I needed some attention and was going to have the baby. And on the day he was born, my husband was working at the meatworks on the kill floor, and I rang him, and he came in white Wellington boots and white uniform, all covered in blood. And they let him into the delivery room, and he was there when Robert was born.
So authentic.
They wouldn't let you do that today.
It was very good. They had a very nice childhood, actually. It was very difficult for me going first because, my husband, that particular year, the year we got married, he had come to India 3 times. So he didn't have any more leave. So we got married, and the 3rd day we left, and we had like a 3-day honeymoon in Bangkok. And then we arrived, the next day he went to work. And so I was left to my own devices in a strange country with, language was a problem where we lived because nobody spoke English. So it was all sign languages. But then there wasn't time to think about it because my son was born like 10 months after I arrived. So life got pretty busy.
It was a wonderful place for the family to grow up, and even from our first house, we liked that area. We liked it because it was a very neighbourly place. At the time in 65, we all had young children, and it was a sort of place as though you could be way out in the country. We knew everybody in the street. As people went by, they'd give you a wave. We used to have parties at our different places, and street parties, and we used to do things like wine bottling, and it was just great.
Well, basically, you'd go to friends' place. We used to have street parties, what we call street parties. Someone would have a party. The children would be left at home, which was just over the road, and every half hour or so we'd pop over and see the children were okay, and we'd just have these wonderful street parties, and a couple of people still from then are still living in the same house that they were in back in those days. They were good days, there's no doubt about it.
And then they went in a nursing home in 92, and they died together within 24 hours. So in the nursing home, and my mother passed away on Tuesday morning. And then when he realised the consequences, he went across the other side of the corridor, saw my father, and he spent his last night by himself, which was Tuesday night, and he passed away the following morning. And the funeral was on the Friday, was to both bodies.
My wife died young at 68, pancreatic cancer, and it became a bit big and a bit miserable, and I went overseas a few times. I did a few trips by myself, and then sitting in the rain one day at Pimble by myself, so I thought I sold it. It'd be worth a fortune now. But anyway, I bought a townhouse in St Ives. That was very good and a very nice place, nice garden, 2-storey, but I realised after a few years that my knees were getting a bit creaky, so I moved, and I was talked into going to the Cotswolds at St Ives Retirement Village. So I've been very happy there. Some nice people, only a few that annoy me, but a nice lot of people, and I'll stay there till I die, I think.
No, I have no regrets. Had a very happy marriage. I have good children who care about me, and and attend to whatever I need for help, if I do need some help. I have no regrets. I think I've been a very lucky person, and I had wonderful parents also, and good friends, and I think that has made life very easy and very comfortable, and particularly very happy for me.
Yes, always has been. It was nice to come back. So yeah, that's. I feel very much at home here. All in all, I'm very happy. I have no other ambitions to relocate anywhere.
I would have moved earlier. It's too late now, but I never wanted to move. I still don't want to move. I just know that the place is falling down a bit around my ears, and I'll never have the money to really. It'll be probably demolished when I go, and another place built on it. But I have no desire to go into a retirement village or anything like that. So I'll just make happy where I am, and I am happy where I am. Even though I know it's not ideal, it's still, I'm happy.
I am very restricted now because everything, because of my loss of sight, my wife really is responsible for everything. I can't assist her in any way, and it's got to a stage where she has to do all the finance and so on. But I have managed to keep going through belonging to wonderful associations where, instead of being a volunteer, as I had been in the past, I am now able to go to things with the assistance of wonderful volunteers.
I have 2 grandchildren, and they are living with me they've been living with me for the past 7 months until their house gets ready. And so, yes, my time is really precious at the moment. It's very enjoyable. It's very full on, and it's very quite tiring sometimes, because sometimes they don't sleep well, and they let you know it. So yeah, but it's very, very rewarding to see them grow up, and that's why I say it's voluntary. I don't have to. I could turf them out.
Don't see as much as them as I used to when they're little. I write stories for them all the time. Every year I write a story for the children. I've done stories about their mother or their father, and they love that, because some of their mothers and fathers have done some naughty things. and so they get that every Christmas. They get a new story. I've written stories about our house. I've written stories about all the travels we did in our London taxi. So I love it. I love writing. When I retired, I thought I'd write a book. I saw all these documents. I thought, right, what am I going to do with my time? Intellectually, I was still going about 180 miles a minute or an hour. And I thought, right, I've got to do something. And I was actually started writing it. And it gave me great pleasure to produce something. And I'm glad I did, because I'm starting to forget a lot of things. As you get older, or because I've written it down subconsciously, I'm forgetting it because I know it's recorded.
One of the reasons why I'm here is that what you're doing is recording family history. Genealogy it has always been important. Everybody should think about writing their autobiography. They owe it to their children, they owe it to their grandchildren to know what went on in their lives and what life was like in the earlier days. Because the children will never experience it. They can only experience it by reading it. And we're the ones that can do it, so we should be doing it.